ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you Mr. Sammy Davis Junior.
Talk amongst yourself, man, because I have to get stuff together first. I'm gonna have to. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Please enjoy your meal, man. You should have used this to talk to. Wouldn't have had to strain yourself. Hang on, man. Ugh. Here, next to my drink. I don't like to be too far from that. I have to time myself here too because I have a tendency to stay out all night. Do we have everything? Put this here. Please enjoy your meal, man. Hope nobody's sitting there. I just commandeered like everything, man. Thank you. Don't worry, I'm not gonna sing first. I have a story to tell.
There you go.
Here, pass that down to Wendy.
Good. So we'll just leave that like that for now.
Excuse me. How's everybody doing this afternoon? Is everybody all right? Good. Sorry for the delay, man. There's a lot of stuff I have to set up in order to do the things that I do. So, where does one start when talking about my life? Let me tell you, it's one hell of a ride, man. It's something that there's books that have been written, but some things had to be left out. And then there's books that should have been written, but at the time, the things that was happening, we were unable to put most of that stuff in. So, let me make sure I don't keep you cats here too long because we could be here until 5 o'clock. So, my name is Sammy Davis Junior. Nice to meet everybody here. Thank you guys for having me here. And I guess it's a nice place to start, man, would be at the beginning. I was born in Harlem, New York, December 8th, 1925. My father was Sammy Davis Senior. I usually use that as a joke. I usually tell people if I'm Sammy Davis Jr., what was the name of my father? It's kind of like who's buried in Grant's tomb. Yeah, believe me, some cats, they mess it up. And my mother, her name was Elvira Davis. However, her maiden name was Elvira Sanchez. So my mother was Puerto Rican, which a lot of people really did not know. My mother and my father, they met doing shows on the, what we used to call the Chitlin circuit. They were in a group called the Will Maston Ensemble. They were a group that traveled all over the country from one theater to another, just back and forth. It was a huge cast, man. And a lot of people only know it now as the Will Maston Trio. But before it was the Will Maston Trio, he had a huge cast of people. But they ran upon hard times, and it whittled all the way down to just 2 people. My uncle, Will Maston, and my father, Sammy. Now my mother and my father was in this show, and that's where they met. So when my mom got pregnant, she had to leave the show, and she went back to New York. Well, since she's been a dancer her whole life, she gives birth to me, and she heads right back out on the road. So I'm not quite sure. I was, quite little at the time, but not sure who was watching over me during this whole time period. But my grandmother on my paternal side came over to see me where I was at my mother's house. Of course, she was not there, and she wasn't too happy with the situation that at the time I was living in. I might have been around 2 years old. So she tells my father that she scoops me up and just takes me home. And she calls my father, who was her son, and said, "I think you need to come here and get your son." So of course my father was already missing me, thank God. And by this time, the Will Maston Ensemble had only become the Will Maston, just 2 people now, just Will and my father. So by the time that they got me at around 2, 3 years old, that was it for me. That was my life. So I'm born in 1925. My father comes to get me around 1928. So that means I never attended one day of school my entire life. For most of my life, I could not read, I could not write, all through my adult age. But since the age of 3, what I could do is stand in the wings and watch my father and my uncle just work a house. So for me, just standing in the wings at 3 and 4 years old, watching everybody dance and how they sang, that's where I got my education. That's what I learned. And that carried me through my entire life. So, all of a sudden, 2 became 3, which is what most people know right now as the Will Maston Trio. Little Sammy Davis Junior and Sam Sr. and my uncle Will Maston. So, we're back and forth across the country, all on the Chitlin circuit. I'm sure everybody here knows what the Chitlin circuit is, correct? Well, let me tell you. No, you did not eat chitlin there. It was a theater circuit that the black entertainers traveled throughout the country. It was the only theaters that they were allowed to perform in during this time. So remember, this is the 1930s right now that I'm traveling around with my father. And this is the only life that I know since birth. So what happens? We're doing a show out in Los Angeles. I think it was around 1933. and some people from Warner Brothers catches the show. And so they come backstage and they say, wow, that little guy is something else, man. Is there anything he can't do? He's singing, he's dancing, he's tapping. We've got something for him. So of course my father's like, oh, okay, well, come talk to us and we'll see, man. So they come, they set some stuff up, and in 1933, I did my first film. It was called Rufus Jones for President. I'm sure you can see it. It's unbelievable. They show like little bits and pieces of this show where I'm this little guy here, and I become the president of the United States in a dream, and the Congress is behind me, the Senate is behind me, and everybody's got a bucket of chicken, and I'm singing and dancing with a chicken wing in my hand too. Now, it's so funny because they show this film all the time, but at least bits and pieces of it. And they tell me, oh, there was Sammy at 3. There was Sammy at 5. And I'm thinking, I don't understand why they keep telling people that I was that age. I'm born in 1925. I did the film in 1933. That makes me 8 years old. So I'm 8 years old in that film. Not 5 or not 3. I just happen to be about that tall. I mean, as you know, I really didn't grow too much after that. So they come to my father and go, this guy's unbelievable. We're gonna have to sign him to a contract. All of a sudden my father and my uncle go, uh-oh, there goes the gravy train. So what happens? That night we pack up everything and we're right down to Union Station and we hightail it right out of Los Angeles. Which is the reason why you see that I only did one movie my entire childhood. My father understood that it was a special thing to have me in the act. And so anybody trying to come in and take that, they really weren't having it. So by this time we're getting really, really popular. We're on the road and we get a call to go to Detroit. At this time it's around 1941. And there's an act that was opening up there that had to cancel. So they called us, the Will Maston Trio, and said, could you guys please come to Detroit and open up for this act? Our opening act is, it didn't work out. So we go to Detroit, and while I'm backstage, this really skinny white kid walks right up to me, shakes his hand out, and says, hey, my name is Frank, and I sing with the Dorsey Band. And I said, hey, well, I'm Sammy, and I sing with my father and my uncle. We're the Will Maston Trio. And he goes, nice to meet you, man. We are going to just hang out all week long. This is 1941. So when I first meet Frank Sinatra, hopefully I don't have to say his last name, we're in Detroit, and he's still singing with the Tommy Dorsey Band. So what happens is, he's in my dressing room, because I could not go to his at that time, every night, just shooting the breeze with me, telling me about the business and about the road. Now at this time, I'm 16. I'm 16 years old, and Frank is 26. So Frank is 10 years older than me. And I have to tell you, and this is the God's truth, Frank Sinatra, even before I met him, was my idol. That's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be Frank, because I understood what my father and my uncle and myself, what we were doing every night on stage, I mean, just the sweat and the pain. And then we're off stage, just dripping. And then here comes Frank in a nice tuxedo, and he gets to the mic and fly me to the moon. Any song without any effort doesn't break a sweat. And I'm thinking, that's what I want to do. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to spin around and jump up and down and touch my toes. But what he's doing, I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And that's, my goodness, that's 1941. So, 1943. What happens? Uncle Sam comes calling. So, 1943, I'm drafted into the Army, and it happens to be the first integrated Army ever. So I told my father, I'm like, this is pretty crazy, man. I'm like, I'm 5'5", 118 pounds. I said, is the Army that desperate that they want me? So off I go to the first integrated Army, and boom, I'm shipped off to Wyoming. And let me tell you, it was the worst time of my life. I was 18 years old. I had never heard people curse this way. No one had ever called me a nigger my whole life. I had never heard any of this. And I'm away from my father and my uncle. Every other day, these guys gave me a beating. And as small as I was, I tried to fight as best I could. But it was no use. The thing, just thinking about it, makes me feel kind of sad. But I found a way to at least take their minds off of basically just beating me every day. They liked the songs I sang, the impersonations I did. They liked the dancing. So I was moved into a different a group where there were entertainers. So it gave me a chance to entertain them, which basically took their mind off of just whooping my ass every day. But thank God in 1945 it was over. I was discharged, went back home. I think that's my father now. He says, don't talk about that. So, I'm back in 45. And what happens? I'd say 51. I make my debut at Ciro's. I don't know how many people here know about Ciro's. It was an unbelievable nightclub that was on the Sunset Strip, right off of Fairfax. Everybody who was anybody was at this place. And we were one of the first black entertainers to ever perform there. Now I believe it's called, guys call it the Comedy Club or Comedy Central or something. Unbelievable. Just, you were allowed to be on stage, but no blacks were allowed in the audience. So, to me, that was the way it was. That's the way it is. It's the 40s, it's the 50s, and this is the job that I had to do. So, right now I'm around in Vegas in 54. So I have a show. I think I might have been performing at Caesars at the time. I'm not sure. But after the show, I have to drive back to LA to record a record at Capitol Records. So on my way there, some woman misses a turn, backs back into the street, and I had a brand new Cadillac. I don't know if people remember these Cadillacs that had the cone on the steering wheel, looked like a rocket on there. Well, when I ran into this woman with my brand new Cadillac, that cone on the steering wheel went straight into my left eye. It poked my eye completely out. And so I'm on the side of the road. My eye is hanging out of the socket. And of course, the police and everybody runs over to the two women in the car to make sure they're all right. And while I'm just sitting on the side of the road, and finally they get around to me. So now I'm in an ambulance, and they're trying to find a hospital that will accept me. This is 1954. So finally, they get to San Bernardino's hospital. And they said, yeah, bring him in. They put me on a gurney, put me in the hallway. And so that's where I am. My eye's been poked out. I'm in such pain. And I'm on a gurney, sitting in the hallway in San Bernardino in 54. So word gets around that Sammy Davis Jr. had an accident on his way back to LA, and right now he's in, the hospital in San Bernardino. My good friend, Mr. Jerry Lewis, jumped into a helicopter immediately and flew to that hospital. That man never left my side. And he's always been invaluable to me in my career, because even when I was at Ciro's, Jerry Lewis would be in the audience taking notes of everything I did. And then he would come back stage and tell me, don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. And I can honestly say that although Frank Sinatra got me in these rooms, it was Jerry Lewis who showed me how to stay in the room and then own the room. That all came from my good friend, Mr. Jerry Lewis. And also, while I'm there in San Bernardino, Eddie Cantor. I don't know how many, these are people that are long before a lot of people, you guys are here, but these guys were giants in the entertainment industry. He used to host a show called the Colgate Hour. His name was Eddie Cantor, huge star. He came there and stayed there with me, him and Jerry Lewis. And he brought me all this literature that was showing me how the black race and the Jewish race had so much similarities to it in terms of the struggles and what they had to endure just to meagerly survive. And he left me with all these pamphlets, and there was a rabbi that came by, always wanted to know how I was doing. And so I read it and read. Long story short, in 1961, I converted to Judaism. So now, I'm black, I've got one eye, and I'm a Jew. So I can tell you right now, if you ever hired me to go someplace, you covered all your bit. You just checked every box you had and said, look, we got them all here. Don't bother us. But I also have to say, with all honesty, that as I was recovering, Frank, who was married to Ava Gardner at the time, Ava was on his back saying, look, Sammy's in San Bernardino. Can you please go get your friend? We have a room in the back. They were living in Palm Springs at the time. Can you bring Sammy here so he can recover here instead of just lying in a hospital in San Bernardino? So, yes, Frank Sinatra did come, pick me up, and take me to his house. We call it Twin Palms. It's in Palm Springs, and the back room back there is where I recovered. So now it's 1954. I've got one eye, and I'm scared to go back out there, and I'm just working. 1956, I do my first Broadway show called Golden Boy. Well, not Golden Boy. Golden Boy was my second one. Mr. Wonderful. And believe me, there's never been a show like it before. It was a show about a black entertainer who struggles to get to the top of the business, and then in the second act, he makes it. And he brings everybody in the audience on stage, and he just does his nightclub act there. So my father was in the show, my uncle was in the show, and at that time you would do a later show so other actors that were doing shows on Broadway could come and see like the second act of your show. So everything's going pretty good. I've got the patch off my eye, and now I meet Kim Novak. I know a lot of people have heard a lot of rumors about Kim. Let me check. Oh my goodness. I know. I'm gonna have to wind it down. Sorry. I told you. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you a little bit about Kim. And I'll try to move it a little bit further so you guys have time to do questions and answers too. I told you I'm kind of long-winded up here. I apologize. But the story of my life is very long, and it's complicated. But with Kim Novak, she was under contract with Columbia Records, or Columbia Pictures, and it was controlled by a man named Harry Cohen. This guy was something special, let me tell you. I'm sure there's a special place down below for this man. Words have no description of what Harry Cohen was in Hollywood here. And so when he finds out that I'm dating Kim Novak, of course we couldn't go out in public. So she's always lying in the back of a car, sneaking into my house and then sneaking out in the morning. And I know it just ruffled a lot of people. And this is 1958. So what happens is soon as Harry Cohen gets word of this, man, he puts a contract out on my life. So singing in Vegas for all these years, I know some people too that I can call to verify if this is true. So I called some people. I said, you may want to check with the good old boys in Chicago and let me know if this contract is valid that Harry Cohen has put out on me because I'm dating Kim Novak. So they come back to me and go, yeah, Sammy, it's real. You've got 48 hours to get married. After that, they're gonna kill you. There's already a hole in the desert with your name on it. Now I'm Sammy. Everybody, but see, what people don't understand is how can they kill Sammy Davis Junior? 1958, they didn't care what your name was. They didn't care who you were. Your life wasn't worth anything to most people back then. They would come to the show and pack the house and cheer and tell them how much they love me, and then tell me to get out, cut through the kitchen, catch a taxi, and get to the other side of the town. And we'll see you tomorrow night. The house is sold out waiting for you. Yeah, thank you. So, some people come to visit me and say, yeah, you've got 48 hours and we found the perfect woman for you. Since you like white women, we found one for you. So They bring this woman to me. Her name is Lorraine White. She's black. She's a cocktail waitress in one of the hotels. And we get married that next day, which means Harry Cohen took off the contract from my life. So I married this woman. I don't even know her, and so I paid her $10,000 for the marriage. She lives in one house, I live in the other house. We never, ever stayed together. So, and after, this is 1958. So after 10 months, I was able to get a divorce from her. So she went her way, I went my way, and by that time, the relationship with Kim Novak was over, and I guess everybody was happy except me. And 1960 rolls around. I meet this tall, blonde, beautiful woman in the commissary at 20th Century Fox. Her name was May Britt. She was a Swedish actress, and she was filming, I think, Blue Angels at the time here in LA, 1958, 1960, in that time period. In 1960, we get married. And at this time, when I married May Britt, it was illegal in 31 states in America for interracial marriages. So we could not go anywhere south of the Mason-Dixie line for us not getting arrested. Not just me, but her also. And so it was just unbelievable to her because she was from Sweden. So she really didn't understand the things that we were all going through. But I tried to explain to her that this is just the way it is here right now. And one day it's gonna get better. I'm gonna have to move along a little bit. I know it's a long story, and I know I'm on a limited amount of time. But I want to jump to 1990. I'm gonna go through. I'm already with the Rat Pack, 1960, and with me doing Golden Boy in 64, and the inauguration with Kennedy, where I was invited to go, and Joe Kennedy didn't want me there because my wife was white, and he was afraid that it would upset the Southern supporters. So at the last second, I would get a phone call and say, Sammy, you can't come. But that really didn't hurt me that much. What really hurt me is that at this inauguration, my good friend Frank Sinatra was in charge of the whole thing. You can see this now. They found a video of it. And it was just something that, because we all had worked so hard on his election. And at the end, for them to tell me that I was not allowed to come there to celebrate with all my friends too, I can tell you I truly never got over that. But one thing I do know is my good pal Dean Martin, he told Frank that he had something to do, so he couldn't make it. He had nothing to do. He just didn't want to associate with the Kennedys, and he was really upset at how they were treating me. So he didn't go. But the strange thing is Harry Belafonte, who was a dear friend of mine, he was there. His wife was white. So it was okay for Harry and his white wife to be there, but not me. It's always something a little different about Sammy. When you put his name in the mix, people want to stand back. They don't really understand. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to jump because I know there's a lot I wanted to cover. You guys are gonna have to come see my show. But anyway,
Sing a song, Sammy.
I'm gonna sing a song. Let me get a song for you guys. But before I do that, I just want to tell you about 1990. my good friend George Schlater was pitching a 60th anniversary for me in the business. This is February 1990. No network wanted to do it. Nobody. And it made George so upset that if you don't do something for this man, who do you do something for? What else does he have to do for you guys to accept this man? So finally, one network says, we'll do it. It was done at the Shrine Auditorium. Everybody was there. My good friend Eddie Murphy was the host. Everybody was there. This is February 1990. And there was a special song written for Michael Jackson to sing to me at this event. And the name of the song was called You Were There. But the gist of the lyrics for this song was telling everybody in the house that all of us tonight are here because he was there. And it was a special song just for that night. He learned it in the car, came out and sang it. Of course, that was Michael. And at this time, the throat cancer had progressed so much that I was unable to speak. So by the end of the night, I could just bow and just watch everybody else. This is February 1990. In May, 3 months later, May 16th, 1990, I passed away in my sleep. So it was just 3 months after the celebration of my career. People knew that I didn't have much time left. But I do have to tell you, it was one hell of a ride. I did what I had to do. I loved who I wanted to love. And no matter what, I sang and danced with a smile on my face my whole life. And I told people, although they did not know who I was, I told them, I know who I am. I am a black man in America. And because of that, I have no choice but to be me. So I told them, I have got to be me. And that's exactly what I did. Thank you very much for having me. And I got to sing a song for you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you. Let me see here. I'll end with this. It seems we've stood and talked like this before. We looked at each other in the same way then, but I can't remember where or when. The clothes you're wearing are the clothes you wore. The smile you are smiling, you were smiling then, but I can't remember where or when. Some things that happened for the first time seems to be happening again. And though it seems that we have met before, and then we laughed before, and then we loved before, but who knows where or when. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for bringing me here tonight. There was so much I wanted to tell you, but we're going to do it again, I'm quite sure, at a different time then. Because I'm quite sure that we've met before. I don't know where or when though. Some things that happened for the first time. Seems to be happening again. And though it seems that we have met before, and then we drank before, and we're gonna drink a whole lot more. But who knows where, oh when. Good night, everybody. Tell somebody you love them.